I absolutely adore chips to the point that I have chips on my shoulder as I'm so bitter. No, I'm not. I'm actually really happy. But one thing I do like to do is some home cooked chips. Now, there's plenty of variants to how to cook chips. I'll run through a few different ones today, but this is more of a general guide so you can pick and choose what kind of things you like, whether you prefer the triple cooked variety, whether you prefer the thinner chips like the fries, the french fries you may find in processed restaurants on the high street. Anyway, so let's get on with this show and see what chips we can make today. Let's start with the triple cooked method. You will need some nice fresh potatoes. The type of potato is quite important. I'm not kind of obviously Heston Blumenthal or some kind of vegetable expert, but the different forms of potatoes you get have different starch levels and water levels and all this sort of science stuff. Generally speaking, however, the likes of King Edwards or Maris Pipers are very good potatoes, very sturdy potatoes for doing chips or even roasts and the like. So we take our potatoes and we chop them up. Obviously, depending on the size you want, so the bigger, chunkier chips will take a little bit longer. Obviously, the fries will take less time. But I am going for more traditional size ones. Give these potatoes a really good rinse. We want to try and get as much starch out of it as possible. You can even leave it to soak in water for a while if you so desire. You then drain them thoroughly, just like the hope has been drained from me over the last 30 years. And as Taylor Swift may say, shake it off. Yeah, give the potatoes a good old shake. Begone starch from our potatoes. So fill up a pan with cold water, put in the chips, and then some table salt, and we are going to bring to the boil. So when we reach boiling point, we just need to parboil it for a while. There's pretty much two options. I don't tend to think they make much difference to the chips. I either keep them boiling on a hard heat for maybe 90 seconds to 2 minutes, or I'll turn the heat right down to a simmer and leave it on there for 5 minutes. The latter one tends to be a bit better in terms of making the potato fall apart a little bit more, but you've got to be really careful because unlike roast potatoes, chips will obviously just disintegrate into mush. So play around with which one works best for you. It's then time to drain the chips, being very cautious not to get super scalding hot boiling water all over us. We then get a plate, put some kitchen roll on. I suppose it could work with toilet roll. Let me know. Give it a go. Let me know if it improves the flavour of the chips. So put some kitchen roll on the plates, pour the drained chips onto that kitchen roll, put another kitchen roll on the top, pat them dry, and leave them to one side because I think it's important to cool these down. Hopefully, it doesn't always work, but if you can get a little bit of texture and a little bit of breakage around the corner of the chips, that will help big league in terms of crisping up for the later stages. But yeah, that's it for the time being. Go and grab a beer or whatever you want to do and come back to these chips later. British chips traditionally will have been cooked in things like beef dripping, lard, or some kind of animal product. And of course, you're perfectly free to use such substances. But we have a vegetarian vegan option too. Of course, there's loads of oils on the market. We'll use some sunflower oil. So this is officially a vegan and vegetarian friendly recipe. Fill a sturdy chip pan with oil, enough oil to cover the chips, and bring to a medium level heat, not too hot. Obviously, if you have a deep fat fryer or a Air Ninja or something like that, I'm sure they can control the temperature. But you want to be looking at maybe 120, 130 for the first batch. And as always, be super, super, super careful because boiling water is one thing, but boiling oil is something else. So do not risk anything with this. Let's play it safe. Gently place the chips into the heated oil. Hopefully, the fact that we dried them off means there's going to be no spitting or anything like that. And then we gently boil them for maybe 5 minutes or so. Keep having a little look as they come up, and you'll see they start to slowly but surely just disintegrate a bit more around the edges and become somewhat translucent. If you want to keep the heat a little bit lower and gently poach them, maybe you can stretch it to 10 minutes or so, depending on the heat. That's also a good way if you don't want to risk playing with anything too hot when it comes to the oil. But you'll see when the chips come to that great pinching point where the colour's there and the texture there and that lovely little glow's there, it's time to take them out and drain them. Don't also forget to either turn off the oil if you're going to wait for a long time, or just turn the heat right down if maybe you're going to wait 5-10 minutes. But anyway, take out the chips, and once again, we drain them onto our toilet paper. You will see around the edges how things are starting to disintegrate and break up, a bit like me. So we'll fast forward to the third cooking batch after we've let them cool down, and we're going to crank the heat up. We want to get this to, I think, 170, 180 in terms of the temperature of the oil. Obviously, that's considered to be hotter than the previous one, so this is definitely something that's super cautious and only by adults, so do not do this. Children shouldn't be watching this anyway. Do not do this. Do not touch oil. Do not anything like that, okay? One tip is to literally just dip in the chips very gently, very just a teeny bit, just to see how they react. Because if the whole thing starts bubbling up, that's when the risk of fires happen. So what we want to do is do that gently, and we will see here that we know the temperature is just right. We get a nice bubble, and then we are in control of the temperature. We can maybe move it up a little bit and boil away. We want to try and do this quickly, of course, so it needs to be of a reasonable heat, but as we say, nothing dangerous. 2, maybe 3 minutes. Again, just give it a little bit of a shake, see how it's coming along. It's not an exact science. You will see as and when, depending on, I suppose some people might like their chips browner or burnt than others. You will just play by ear or play by eye because you're using your eyes, not your ears. Drain once more on fresh kitchen roll, and we're good to go. We've got our chips. Don't forget to turn the heat off the hob, though. And by all means, allow the oil to cool right down and tip it back into the bottle to use on a later fry. One variant of this recipe is to cut the chips a little bit thinner. You can even go all the way down to fries. However, with that sort of sizing, I don't tend to do triple cooked. I'll just do double cooked. So we'll run through the very same process: chop up the potatoes, drain them, wash them, blah blah blah, boil them, drain them, pat them down. But rather than doing two fries, we're just going to do one, and that does a very similar thing. You know, the chips are a bit smaller, so they don't need quite as much time to soften up and flake up and all that kind of stuff. It is a little bit less faff too, so that saves a bit of time, and you can serve it up with whatever you like. In this case, it was a burger. If you're interested in an alternative to the chip of a potato variety, then feel free to check out my sweet potato fries recipe, which I'm going to say is quite nice.